Hey, what's going on, family? This is your boy Joshua Parr. I want to welcome you to another Purpose podcast. Listen, this topic is a little bit spicy, so I want you to put your seatbelt on. Sit tight. We're getting ready to roll out here. Listen, I am so excited because this is a topic that doesn't get talked about the most. If you looked at Google or you looked at Amazon and you looked up online on how to fail, you probably wouldn't get a lot of results. Nobody in their right mind studies failure. Nobody in their right mind wants to fail. As a matter of fact, the most books that are most sold are books on success, self-improvement, are books that help you get to the next level in life. Nobody wants to fail in life, no matter if they feel or acknowledge that they are a failure. But what if I told you that the many reasons why we experience failure in life is because we never study failure? That just as success needs to be studied, it's the same way that failure needs to be studied so we can be able to extrapolate lessons that would establish us to be well prepared for what the future may pose. I began to study this topic of failure. And the first person in the Bible who experienced failure was shown in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, all the way to Genesis, chapter 3. That in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, the creator of the heavens and the earth, God, established a purpose for man to dominate this earth. The Bible says that he created man in his own image and likeness so man can dominate the earth. We see that in the book of Genesis chapter 1 from verse 26. Now, in Genesis chapter 2, this creator God then goes through all these strenuous processes, creating a garden, establishing this man, this humanity that he created, and gives them one simple warning. Out of all the trees in the garden, please make sure you don't eat of this tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. In other words, I'm counting on you not to fail me. I've established you, and a part of my purpose for you is for you to dominate. And if you were to die, it defeats the very purpose that I've called you to do. So for my plan to be successful, Adam, I need you to not eat of this tree. I need you to obey me. But down the line in Genesis chapter 3, Adam failed God. Not only did Adam fail God, God's original plan for Adam failed. So in the book of Genesis, we are introduced to an almighty creator who had a purpose, but within that very purpose, a plan failed. Then God told Eve and Adam, he says, Eve, listen, I understand that y'all have failed me, and my original plan for you seems to not be working because you have sinned. What I'm going to do for you is I want to give you a promise. You are going to birth a seed. And that seed, that son, that child that you will birth, will be one that will be my second plan. In other words, I know this plan failed, but for me to fulfill the very purpose that I want to see y'all do, I'm going to create another plan. And this other plan will come in the form of a son, a seed that will bruise the head of that serpent. In other words, when this seed comes out of you, it will defeat the serpent and repurpose you back, reestablish you back into my original plan. And so years go by, we're wondering where the seed will come from. They thought it would be Abel, but Abel got killed by his brother Cain. And so years go by, they're still wondering, where is this seed? Down the years, God then reveals another clue to Abraham. He says, Abraham, from your seed, all nations will be blessed. That Abraham, you are my second clue. This seed that I promised in the garden is still here. It's coming, and I'm telling you, it's going to come from your loins. Abraham thought it was Isaac. Isaac thought it was Jacob. Jacob then wrestled with God. I got to see this thing happen. And God changed his name to Israel. Now, the children of Israel, being descendants of Abraham, they now begin to believe we have to be the seed. We have to be the seed because we are seed of Abraham. We didn't understand that God was talking about a bigger picture. It's other plan. You see, because as long as man had sinned, no one could pay the price for man's sin. Someone had to pay the price. But for you to pay the price, you have to be without sin. And no one was without sin. And so decades had gone, thousands of years. And then God reveals another clue to a virgin woman named Mary. He says to her, you will bring forth a child. You will call his name Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. The Bible lets us know that Jesus is defined as the second Adam. Why would there be a second Adam? Because the first Adam failed. And so Jesus then comes in the book of John chapter 10. He says, I have come so that you can have life and have it more abundantly. Why would Jesus say that? Because Adam's sin introduced death. And so God's original purpose still remained, but his initial plan failed. And so he had to create another plan. His original purpose still remained, but his initial plan to accomplish said purpose failed. And so he had to create another plan. And Jesus came to be another plan that will be enacted so we can live in the very purpose of God. Why is that important? Many of us, may I submit to you, that what you thought failed was simply a plan that failed. Many of us, we don't know how to deal with failure because we have been deceived into believing that a failure of a plan is a failure of a purpose. May I submit to you that your purpose cannot fail. That purpose, unfortunately, the way that it is wired and generated, it has an inability to fail. Purpose cannot fail because purpose is completed before anything or anyone is deployed. In other words, before a building begins to build on the foundation, the very purpose has already been designed. The architecture and all the engineers, they come together and they design the very purpose of that building. And when they have received the check marks, they've gotten all the clear codes, they've gotten everything aligned to its purpose completed, then they start working on it. Now, they may buy some wood that might rust and break. That's a plan that failed. The weather might come and affect the very timeline that they were meant to complete the building. That is a plan that failed. They may have some people say, you know what, I don't want to work with this company anymore. I quit. That is a plan that failed. I want to submit to you that a plan can fail, but a purpose cannot fail. So how then do we deal with failure? Number one, you have to discern between what failed. Whenever you're dealing with failure, you have to ask yourself, is what failed a plan or my purpose? Because the way you were designed before God sent you out on this earth, before you took your first breath, like the perfect architecture and perfect creator and designer that he is, he had already designed, planned, structured, organized your life, and then given the check mark and say, now go. Go be born on earth. Now, you may have been born to the wrong parents. You may have been born to a parent who did not take responsibility to be a father or a mother. You may have been born into an environment where things did not work the way it needed to work. You may have been born and went to a school where teachers did not care about education and about students. You may have gone to a college where you did not finish. You may have experienced some level of a plan failing, but your purpose did not fail. Have you discerned what failed? Many of us, we don't know how to discern between the failure of a plan and the failure of a purpose. God was able to discern that, oh, all that simply failed here was a plan. Adam failed. It's okay. I'm going to create another plan. Step number one on how to deal with failure: discern what failed. Is it a plan or is it your purpose? Understand also that purposes cannot fail. Step number two: understand the definition of failure. I have my phone over here. Failure is defined as a lack of success, not a lack of purpose. Could it be that you have misdiagnosed yourself? Could it be that you have called your purpose a failure simply because of a lack of success in a plan? Failure is defined as a lack of success, not a lack of purpose. Whenever you experience failure, it is a failure of a plan, not the failure of your purpose. So then, how do we deal with failure? Here's a simple answer: create another plan. Whenever you experience failure, I need you to wire your mind into the thought process of, in every area that I experience failure, I simply need to create another plan. That's what God did. When God experienced the failure of Adam disobeying him, he simply created another plan in Jesus Christ. Have you created another plan for that failure? There may be somebody listening who's like, well, the doctor said I can't have any children because my womb is not strong enough. Now there are mechanisms to have another plan to birth a child. Maybe you lost that job and now you're wondering, well, I don't know how I'm going to make it out. My car just got repossessed. I feel like my purpose is done. No, 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 no. The plan only failed. The plan only failed. What is your other plan? I submit to you that there are three ways to handle failure in life. Number one, you have to discern what failed. What failed? Is it your plan? And recognize that failure is simply a lack of success, not a lack of purpose. First, you must know what failed. It's simply a plan. What failed in your life is simply a plan. That degree you didn't get was simply a failed plan. The marriage that didn't work out was simply a failed plan. That experience that you had that was so traumatizing was simply a failed plan. The job that you lost was simply a failed plan. The people who backstabbed you and hurt you and abused you, there was simply a failed plan. The children that walked out on you, there was simply a failed plan. The employees that walked out on you are simply a failed plan. I came here to tell you this day that a failed plan is not a failed purpose. A failed plan is not a failed purpose. You still have a purpose. All you simply have to do is to create another plan. And that is how you deal with failure. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful time. Thank you for listening for today. And I hope to see you next week, next time on the Purpose